Welcome back to the Tip TV Health. Let's talk to the famous Dr Charlie from Harley, a man who's got more letters after his name than in his name. Dr Charlie, welcome again. Let's talk occupational health and the traveller. What's that all about?
Yeah, so occupational health is when you're looking after an employee and looking at the risks to that employee of either what they do or where they go. The master or the father of occupational health was an Italian called Ramazzini, and he did a lot of work on sewage workers and various other workers, and he found certain diseases linked to certain professions.
Right.
Charles Dickens also was aware that certain diseases, and you know the days he used to have the chimney sweeps?
Yep.
Well, the chimney sweeps were young boys because they could fit down the chimney, but they used to get a cancer of the scrotum,
right,
which is very rare, but it was because all the tar was there acting as a carcinogen. So that's classic occupational health. My job with the traveller is to make sure that they know all the risks of where they're going and are properly prepared for that, and where appropriate vaccinated against that.
So basically it's a checklist for my staff who are going overseas to make sure that they've covered every likely outcome.
The way to look at it is, if you're a builder, you're supposed to wear a hard hat. So the advice is the hard hat.
Right.
It's there to protect you. One of the examples of an extra vaccination might be certain types of profession might need protection against a disease called hepatitis B. And that's a chronic form of hepatitis which is transmitted by blood-borne viruses. So that might be that if you're a doctor or if you work in the sewage industry, then you're more prone to that disease and you need protection.
So is this basically a massive spreadsheet going across type of job, type of person, and go across and go, right, he's at risk of A, B and C, I need to look after him as my employee?
One of the courses I lecture on is a diploma in occupational medicine at the Royal Society of Public Health, and I do a whole lecture around looking after employees overseas, and you've just summed it up very nicely. It's a combination of the country, the location, the person, and the person's vulnerabilities, because someone may have certain diseases or certain vulnerabilities already, and is it appropriate for them? Years ago, I met a young man who subsequently died on a trip to China, and the reason he died was that he had played rugby, and when he played rugby he'd injured his spleen, which is an organ usually on this side of the body, right? So that had been removed. Now a lot of people don't know that if you have your spleen removed, you're more prone to certain types of bacterial infections.
Right.
And he died of pneumonia. Now if someone had warned him or he'd had the vaccination, he may still be alive today.
Right. Oh, that's tragic. In terms of, I'm 21 years old, just done my university degree. What jobs wouldn't you recommend health-wise?
That's a really good question. It depends what you want to do. You know, if you want to be a mortician, you be a mortician. If you want to be...
What jobs statistically should I not do?
Oh, right. What's going to have the highest risk? I think we're in a new era. There's a very famous story of one of the British queens when she first landed at Greenwich. She said, have all Englishmen only got one leg and one arm? Because working on the docks in those days was, you know, literally you just had a hook or you had a thing. So we have moved on that far. But unfortunately, a lot of developing nations haven't moved on that far. I've been to places in India and other countries where there are children doing highly dangerous things with flip-flops and saws and, you know, cancer all over the place. So that's the biggest change that we need to try and achieve. How can we apply our high standards that have meant that we're healthy to those children and those adults overseas?
Understood. So, let me ask you another question. What's the safest job? What's the best job for my health?
Wow, that's a really good question. Because, well, we've got to split it into mental, physical and spiritual, really, haven't we? So there are some jobs where you're higher risk of mental distress. I'd say lawyers, some aspects of medicine. I don't know how stressed bankers get, but you, I'm sure, can tell.
Very.
Okay, so there's that. There's other jobs that have a higher physical risk. So obviously if you're an athlete or someone like that. And there are other jobs where there's probably a spiritual risk, where you actually don't feel good about yourself for the work that you're actually doing. So that's how I would look at it.
So, for example, if you're a vicar and you're hearing everyone's sad tales and you're burying people, you know, my local vicar, he's a very upbeat gentleman.
Yes.
But I would think that's really quite hard work.
You need an outlet. And I think there's two aspects to that. One is, are you the right person for the job? So there's a thing called empathy, obviously, where you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. For certain professions, your empathy index must not be 100%, because as a doctor, I cannot be 100%.
As in, don't get involved with the people.
Absolutely. Well, not everyone. I've got to have some empathy, but if I cried every time...
What percentage is that?
I'd say we're 70%. Because if I cried every time someone said they had cancer, I wouldn't be a very good doctor.
Right.
You know, I can't be blubbing away. So there's certain profession where you have to have that little ability to draw away from tragedy and bad news.
How would you do that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think you'll soon identify yourself as oversensitive. And if you're oversensitive to the conditions of that job that it requires, then count yourself out of it and find something that suits you better. If you're in the job because you enjoy it and you love it, but all you're getting is grief from other people, then equally you need a safe place to deposit that. And sometimes you need an external counsellor. Sometimes the worst place to take it is home. Because your poor partner.
Place, is that down my disused railway track and running 10 miles every Sunday morning?
Yeah, exercise is good for you. Some forms of hobbies, interests and leisure are good for you. You and I agree that we don't want to overdrink, but some alcohol, you know, there's a U-shaped curve in terms of alcohol and health. So a little drink every now and then may be good, but not when it becomes the habitual thing.
Understood. Okay, Dr. Charlie from Harley, thank you for that. We're off down the pub for a wee tipple. Have a good day. Thank you.